Fabs, I need a quarterback from you.
Let's go, man. Matt Ryan's probably the best quarterback start of the week based on the matchup. The Buccaneers have allowed not one, Cynthia, not two, Marcus, not three, Graham, but four straight top 10 fantasy quarterbacks. And I think Matt Ryan's going to make it 5, guys.
Fabs is feeling all excited over there. Cynthia, how do you feel about that?
Fabs, I love the enthusiasm, and I'm going to tell you someone you should be starting this week, absolutely, Carson Wentz versus the Seahawks. I think this is going to be a really high-scoring game, so I think Wentz is going to have to keep passing, especially late in the game, to keep pace with the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, let's move things along. Marcus, when it comes to running backs, give me a matchup.
How about Philip Lindsay here? You know, once upon a time, we thought this Bills run defense was good. Turns out, it's not. They've given up over 112 rushing yards per game in the last few weeks to running backs. Philip Lindsay is getting a ton of touches for the Denver Broncos. And look, Heel, if you got Royce Freeman, too, he's a nice flex option for you.
Okay, Graham, I'm going to swing things over to you because I need another running back, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you do. And Tevin Coleman is a great start this week against the Packers. Look, we've been picking on this Green Bay defense all year long, and this week is no difference. I think the Niners are going to control the game script here with their run game, and it'll be through Tevin Coleman. Packers are giving up the second most fantasy points per carry to opposing backs this year, the 9th most receptions per game to backfields, too. I think Coleman gets in the end zone this week and has a big day.
Yeah, Matt Breida did not practice today, so Tevin Coleman won't have to get ready if he's been staying ready. So, time now to swing things over to the pass catcher. Cynthia, hit me with the wideout.
Tyler Lockett. I'm obviously staying in the same game I told you. I think it's going to be very high scoring. And a guy who's had 16 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games is a really good option. Russell Wilson's #1 target. Yes, the Eagles secondary has looked better in the past 3 games, but I think Tyler Lockett is kind of unmatchable.
Yeah, despite going through that morning walkthrough.
I do math, not grammar.
Did not practice on that injured leg, and yeah, we'll see how things shake out. Check out NFL.com for the latest on him. Now, J-Double, Julio Jones, that's where you're going next.
Yeah, man, I'm sticking with the whole bird theme. This is matchup-able.
Yep.
Matchup-able.
Whatever that means.
Match up with
It's in Webster's.
Now, he
Emmanuel
did
Webster.
miss practice today because of a foot injury. Keep tabs on his status. I think he will be fine. But again, guys, Buccaneers, you're going to be starting a lot of Atlanta Falcons this week, including Julio and Calvin Ridley as well.
Okay, I like where that's at. Graham, how about you delight those fantasy managers out there with the tight end?
Yeah, how could you not love Mark Andrews this week? I know we typically don't think of the Rams as a good matchup for opposing tight ends. They've quietly given up 6 top 10 tight end performances to the position already this year, giving up the 8th most yards per game to the position since week 5, and Andrews is second only to Zach Ertz in target share this year. So get Andrews in your lineup here.
Okay. Marcus, who's your team again?
I'm a 49er fan.
Good
year for you.
Yeah, it has been a good year. And Ross, well, he's been playing well. At least last week he was a good fantasy option. Let's go with that one. George Kittle looks like he is hurt more than the Niners were initially letting on, so it looks like it's going to be Ross Dwelly again, going against that Packer defense that over the last 4 weeks or so has given up more than 100 receiving yards per game to the position. I don't expect Dwelly to kind of hit those numbers, but he's getting those end zone targets.
Michael Fabiano is here as he usually is. He's going to hit you with those starts, those sits. He's also going to sprinkle in a sleeper, and that's a nice little sprinkle there.
It's called sprinkling.
Just like Salt Bay, just like that. And we're going to start with the starts at the running back position. Go
yeah,
fast.
and we've talked about Jalen Samuels already a little bit on the show. He's a very good RB2. In games where Mr. Connor has been unavailable, Samuels is averaging nearly 16 fantasy points per game dating back to last season, and he's playing the Bengals. I don't need to say anything more than that.
They're not that good, yeah.
I'm also starting Kareem Hunt. Now, I get it. He's kind of still playing second fiddle to Nick Chubb, but he's getting a lot of volume as a pass catcher. In fact, he's actually scored more fantasy points in the last 2 games than Chubb. They're playing the Dolphins this week. They've allowed the 8th most fantasy points to running backs. My sleeper, Devin Singletary. Now, the problem there with Devin is that he's losing those goal line opportunities to Josh Allen, but the matchup's good against the Broncos. They have a lot of top 20 fantasy running back in 3 of their last 4 games.
Yeah, it's tough to get production when your quarterback is pretty much a de facto running back
this week.
All right, give me your running backs that you want to sit fast.
People may be surprised at this, but David Montgomery is a sit for me. He's kind of giving you 2 stinkers in a row, and the Giants' defense has actually allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to running backs since week 8. That includes a game against Ezekiel Elliott where he was held to the RB23 that week. So Montgomery, a lot of those Bears, except for Allen Robinson, a risk in my book. And we talked about Sony Michel. He's becoming like a guy I'm sitting every single week. Why? I say the same thing. When Rex Burkhead plays, he is averaging fewer than 7 fantasy points per game. And so even though the Cowboys have been kind of struggling against the run recently, I still can't trust Michel because he's losing those snaps and touches to Burkhead, and James White is there as well.
Okay, you know what to do. It's wide receiver time. Give me a pair that I can start this week, Fabs.
You want 2?
2.
Utah, give me 2, and I'll give you the first one.
Nick Nolte would be proud.
Right. This Calvin Ridley, who I mentioned a little bit earlier on. Last week, boy, he had a monster game. Best game of the season, over 28 fantasy points. Now he's got the Buccaneers. They've allowed 12 touchdown catches, and the third most fantasy points for receivers lined out wide. Ridley's running about 85% of his routes out wide. I'm also starting Jamison Crowder. I've been telling you to start him for weeks now. He's given you 18-plus fantasy points in 3 straight games. He's got the Raiders this week. They've allowed 9 touchdowns and the 7th most fantasy points to the slots this year. I mentioned giving you a potential sleeper from the Steelers. It's James Washington. Juju Smith, banged up. Deontay Johnson, banged up. Mason Rudolph has that rapport with Washington from their time in college, and James Washington is just going to see a lot of volume, and they are playing the Bengals, so he's a guy worth adding off the waiver wire if you need help at wide receiver or flex.
Okay, so you gave us our starters. Who are you going to sit this week, man?
Yeah, I hate doing this because he's such a good player, but I can't trust Terry McLaurin at this point. I just can't do it. When you look at the numbers, in games that he has played with Dwayne Haskins, he's averaging 8.6 points per game. Case Keenum, almost 16 points per game. And he faces the Lions this week and Darius Slay, who just held Amari Cooper to 38 yards. I'm also sitting Tyler Boyd. And at this point, Tyler Boyd is becoming a guy you just can't trust. He's disappeared in the stat sheets since they went away from Andy Dalton. He's averaging 7 points per game with Ryan Finley under center. And last time he played the Steelers, 3 catches, 6.3 fantasy points. No bueno.
So, Bake. He's been a recurring quarterback in Fab's Weekly. Start him, sit him each and every single time around, but it's been for all the wrong reasons. That's right. 8 straight weeks as a sit him quarterback. But today, Michael's feeling all decked out because he has that Baker Brown. Now look at him right there. He's ready to go. Ready to party.
Baker
He's that kind of guy.
The sit-em list.
We are
going to party.
Give me that.
He is a stardom.
Are you ready?
This week, dude, look, I mean, I even baked a cake.
Yourself?
For Baker Mayfield. Let's party,
Let's do it. Mine's not working. Mine's not working the right way. There we go.
Against the Miami Dolphins, man. That is a great matchup. And it's time to celebrate if you have Baker Mayfield on your fantasy football team.
Who's going to clean up all those flowers? Who else are you starting this week?
I also like Derek Carr. He's given you 19-plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. He's got the Jets this week. The Jets have really struggled against quarterbacks, allowing an average of right around 19 fantasy points per game. So Derek Carr is a good play. Let's stay in that same game. Sam Darnold, 21-plus fantasy points in 2 straight games. He's also given you 19-plus in 2 of his last 3 games at MetLife Stadium. And the Raiders have allowed the 3rd most touchdown passes to quarterbacks this season. So Darnold is in play as a starter this week.
Okay, well, who you sitting, Mr. Confetti Cannon?
All right, you ready for this one?
Come on.
Aaron Rodgers.
What?
Now, I get it, okay? He's Aaron Rodgers, but listen, he has given you fewer than 15 fantasy points 6 times this year. And I know Kyler Murray had great games against the Niners in 2 of his last 3, but 32% of his fantasy points came as a runner. You're not getting that from Aaron Rodgers. This is also a road game, so I'm just a little nervous about A-Rod's potential in this contest. And this one, okay, you can at me on Twitter if you want. I'm sitting Jameis Winston. You look at the matchup and you think, wait a minute, it's Atlanta. Okay, well, let's not look at what they did several weeks ago, and let's look at what they've done lately. They held Drew Brees to fewer than 12 fantasy points, and this is a team who has 11 sacks and 4 picks in their last 2 games. This is not a great matchup for Jameis Winston right now, guys.
Okay, you mind giving me a pair of tight ends to start?
Yeah, we can do that, and we're going to start off with a guy who hopefully you picked up on the waiver wire. That's Jacob Hollister. He has scored at least 1 touchdown and 19-plus fantasy points in 2 straight games. And how's this for a stat, Mr. Wright? In 6 games this year, the Seahawks have had a tight end score double-digit fantasy points, and in 5 of those games, 18-plus between Hollister and Will Disley. I also like Ryan Griffin, who I told people to pick up last week. He had a huge game against the Redskins. Now he's playing the Raiders. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. This guy and Hollister, they could still be on the waiver wire in some leagues. If you need help at tight end, and a lot of us do, pick them up and start them.
Now, in case you missed this, how about we head to Indy? Because T.Y. Hilton practiced in full today and is listed as questionable for Thursday evening versus Houston. So, Cynthia, if T.Y. returns, can you project for him?
All right, well, let's level set here. He hasn't played since week 8, so he's missed 3 games. And he just got off the injury report, and today is, the day before the game? So he's still on the injury report. He's still questionable. I'm not even sure if he plays, if he's going to be 100%. So I kind of projected sort of a 50% efficiency. So something like 4 receptions, maybe 40, 50 yards. I think an end zone target or 2 is really a good opportunity, but it's not going to be this huge, like, 25-point fantasy game.
All right, keep it locked to NFL Network for the very latest on Hilton. Now, in case you missed this, it looks as if Tyreek Hill's hamstring minor as expected. Hill now considered day-to-day. We'll get the extra week of rest with the Chiefs, of course, on a bye week. So, Marcus, any concerns when he returns? He's going to face off with the Raiders when he comes back.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
None?
Not even a little bit. No, Tyreek Hill, look, he's got the week to rest. He's going to be fine. He's unmatched up with a bull, right?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Nailed
it.
Bam!
Have you ever seen a cheetah stretch?
I have not.
I haven't either.
I have not. They're just fast.
I must have missed it. And in case you missed this, Giants tight end Evan Ingram not practicing today with that injured foot, but he is expected to play this week versus those Chicago Bears.
The Bears.
Yeah, I got that information from Bill Swirsky and the Superfans, Fabs. But you have some additional intel not from Bill Swirsky?
Yeah, I mean, my source is telling me that Evan will play this week. And to back that up, I looked at his roster in my Celebrity League. He took Gerald Everett out and put himself into the starting lineup.
Okay,
That's
could be
probably a good sign, right?
Could be a
I
solid
would think.
indicator.
Yeah.
Certainly could be. Now, in case you missed this, Brown said in David Njoku, he's back practicing. He's eligible to return from the injured reserve list on Sunday versus Miami after missing an 8-pack of games with the broken wrist. Now, Graham, the tight end position, it's been an absolute landfill for owners league-wide. So are you rolling him out there as a must-start this week?
It has been a tough position to start, but, I don't think Njoku is a must-start. The matchup is obviously great against the Dolphins, but Njoku's missed well over 2 months after having that wrist surgery, and I'm just not sure he's going to play the full complement of snaps like we'd usually see from him. I'd give it a week.
Okay, more from the In Case You Missed It files. Both James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster not practicing today as the Steelers start preps for Cincinnati on Sunday. Now, Conner dealing with that shoulder injury while Juju is still in concussion protocol as well as dealing with that knee injury. So, Fabs, this looks to be the opposite of good news.
Yeah, unless you have Jalen Samuels, who's the handcuff, in which case you're looking pretty good. RB2, great matchup against Cincinnati. And as far as Juju goes, well, there is a replacement on the Steelers roster that you could potentially use who might be on the waiver wire. And I'm going to give you that player's name a little bit later on.
Ooh, that's what you call a deep tease.